Today I'm going to show you how to set up reference images within Maya. To begin, you want to open up Maya and make sure you have your reference images ready. Just to begin with, I'm going to open up the reference images in Photoshop just to get some measurements. So while these are opening up, we need to know the measurements to make sure we can set them up inside Maya correctly. So here I have the image we're going to use for this example. You'll be using these as well, so the numbers won't change. So now I've got the image open. If I go up to image size, and then put this on centimeters, just here, it'll tell me the centimeters. Now we're going to be working in centimeters in Maya, so it's important to be aware that you need to know it in centimeters. So we have the width at 87.88 and the height at 80.15. So okay, that I'm going to do it. I will just open the side image just to check that. Again, image size, make sure it's on centimeters, and here we have 16.55 and 80.15 again. So the height's going to be the same both sides. Again, if you was doing a car or something else, you'd want to check these so you can set them up correctly. So now close Photoshop. Now I know the sizes. Make sure you note them down. And now we're going to go into Maya. So I'm going to create a new scene, something like this. Now the first thing we're going to want to do is create a height box just to use for reference. So if we go up to Create, Polygon Primitives, and Cube, it'll set up a cube. So actually before we do anything else, one thing we want to do is make sure we're in the right measurements. So to do that, we will go to Windows, Set as Preferences, and Preferences. And then on the left here, where it says Settings, click on that. And then here in Working Units, you can set up the linear to centimeters. We're working in centimeters for this project, so please set it as centimeters. And obviously, when we set up the reference images, we've checked the numbers at centimeters. Once that is done, you can press Save. The next thing we can do is set up the grid. So you can turn the grid on and off here. At the moment, yours might be really big, really small. So again, go to Display at the top, make sure your grid's on. Click this little box at the end, and here we can set up the units. So we have the length and width, so this is how big it's going to go out to the edges of the grid. So at the moment mine goes out 200 centimeters, 200 centimeters in each direction. Then I'm also going to have these grid lines, so every 10 centimeters there's going to be a line. Obviously you can change this to 1 or whatever you feel most comfortable with. I use 10, seems to work for me. And then subdivisions, I would set this just to 1, otherwise it adds subdivisions to each one of these and you end up with lots and lots of lines. You can change the colours of things, so you may want the axes a different colour. I usually leave mine just as they are. It's completely up to you. You can change these to brighter colours so you can see them better. You can also turn on thickness of axes to be thicker, sorry. So where the 0, 0 lines are, they're going to be thicker than the others, as you can see over here. So if you just press Apply and Close once you've set them up, I would set them up to something similar to what I've got. So now your grid's set up, your measurements are set up. Now we need to make the height box. So like I said, I'll just delete this, create it again. So create polygon primitive cube. It'll look quite small to begin with. Then what we're going to do, we're going to set the X to 20. So you see this is now gone out one way and the other way. So 10, 20, because these are every 10. Then we're going to change the Y to 170, about the average height of a human, because that's what we're working with. So as you see, it's gone quite tall. And then we're just going to set this to 20 as well, just to make it a box, like so. So the next thing you're going to want to do is bring this up to the grid. So I would press on here, and you see the pivot is in the middle. So what we're going to want to do is move the pivot to a vertices on the box. So if we press D, it'll let you edit the pivot. If you hold V, you can then set that to one of your vertices. Set it to this lower left one. Now you just press D again, just to get out of there. Now your pivot's moving from there. So now to snap it to the grid, up here there is a little magnet with a grid. There's different magnets for different things, so snaps to curves, snaps to points, so on. The one we're looking at the moment is the grid. So then when we lift it up, it is snapping to the points on the grid. It should snap to the points on the grid. There we go. Yep. So then we're going to just move that to the edge of the grid, just so it's out of the way. And we'll add this to a layer. So one thing we want to do first is just rename this to height box. I would recommend using underscores instead of spaces, just so stuff is easy to find when you're searching it. Get used to that process. And here, if you click on this little square with the ball, whatever's selected will be added to the layer that you're going to create. If you create a layer here, nothing will be added to it, you'll have to add it afterwards. So if we just create this one, it'll add the selected objects to the new layer. So here I've got the new layer. If I press V, the visibility goes. What we're going to do is change the name. So change this to height box. Press save. Height box layer. It's got the same name. Height box layer. You can change the color and things like that if you want to of the layer, but I just leave it as normal. And then if you click on this third square, press it once, it'll go to sort of like a wireframe. You press it again, what that does is if you change it to the R, you click off, and I try to click that box, you cannot grab that box. It's not going to be able to be edited until you change this R again to a blank. And now I can grab it again. So we're just going to leave that on R so we don't grab it. It's not going to get in the way when we're trying to move things or anything else. So now that's set up, we have something to go off for height. So we know the human's going to be about this height. So the next thing to do is start setting up your image planes or your reference images. So to do this, what we're going to do, we're going to create a polygon primitive plane. Again, this is going to be really, really small. We're going to call this, I'm going to rename this over here, reference plane front. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to go to the polyplane under inputs and just change your subdivisions, width and height both to 1. And then on your scaling X, we're going to go back to those numbers from Photoshop. So this being the front image, it was 87.88 centimeters by, in the Z, the Y won't actually change because it's a plane, it won't have any thickness, it's like a sheet of paper, you can't change that. And then the Z will be 80.15. So we're like this. Is that correct? And then in the Y, you're just going to change this to 90, just to rotate it up. Oh, not the Y, sorry. Zero. So rotate, check the rotation. So in the Z, sorry, this will be at 90. And if we just want to check, if we press spacebar, and go to your front view. As you can see, it says front Z, Z minus. We are actually rotated the wrong way, so we want to be the same angle as the box, so this needs rotating the X. So we rotate this 90 degrees in the X. You'll see here now the image is, the plane is now facing the front. So this is how we want it. We want to know that it's the right way. So make sure you're using your other views to help. Don't just use your perspective view all the time. So now we've got all this set up. What we're going to do next is move the pivot. So we're going to actually double click on here. Now I would always recommend having things set to world. You can reset your tool if you need to, if you have any problems with a pivot. Now one thing you can do that's really helpful is you can press edit pivot or press D on the keypad, which will do the same thing. And then here on the transform constraint, what I'm going to do is set it to an edge. So that means I can now, if I just turn off this grid again, so it doesn't snap to the grid, I can then get it to, if I click on an edge, it's going to center it to the middle of that edge. So now my pivot's right in the middle of the plane that I've created. So now if I just click edit pivot or press D again, that will save the pivot to there. Just turn this transform constraint off again so you don't get any issues, and we can close that. So next what we're going to do, we're going to bring this up to so it's level. So we turn on the grid lock again and then just pull it up so it's on the plane. So that's now currently at the middle of the pivot point now is at 0, 0, 0. And as we've been talking about in many other sessions, it's good to model at 0, 0, 0 for exporting and importing to Unreal. So now we're going to add a texture or the image. So one thing we want to do first is just check the UV, so UV editing, and just make sure this is filling the square. We may need to come back and edit this slightly if the image is the wrong way, but we want to fill the square like this. It should do it automatically with a plane, but if you are having any issues, you may need to just sort of set it up, select the shell, and just get it to unfold. Optimize it, straighten the UVs if you need to, and then arrange layout, something like that. Really, that's a bit too short, so what I'll probably do is go create an automatic, and the automatic has filled it in. Ooh. Like so. So that's all we need. So that has done it. So then we just go to Maya Classic, go back to how it is, change it back to object mode up here. So now we're going to create a material. So if we go up to here where it says display hypershade window, this little ball with a ball inside of it, that's going to come up with a second window. They're called the hypershade, and this is where you create all your materials. So we're just going to go to Maya over here on the right, create a Lambert, just click that. You got a Lambert here. Rename this, so reference image front. Then here in the color, we're just going to click this little checkered box at the end, and it'll come with a create render node. Click on file, and it adds this node here, connects it up into the color. And in here, it's going to open this. So inside this little file here, where it's got a little folder, click on that. And then you just need to find the right image. So mine are currently saved to the desktop. So desktop, male ref front. Open this. And you should get your image sort of on the ball here. If you change this to a plane, you can see what that's going to look like. I'll just change it back to shader ball. So the next thing you need to do is, it's a little bit fiddly on a single screen, but select your object in the background window, and then you can right click over the reference image front I've got, or you can do it over here on the actual node, and just press assign material to selection. So it's now assigned it to the selection in the viewport. So we selected this. So now to show it, we just click here, this textured, and you can see the image is there. So now the image is rotated slightly off. So to fix this, we go to your UV editing, and it's really quite simple. All we do is select the shell. Don't rotate the object, rotate inside here. And then what we're going to do is go to rotate, and just rotate this to the left, like so, and then straighten UVs. So this is done. The image is now in place. Go back to object mode, and we can create the side view. So what we're going to do again is create polygon primitive plane. Okay, it's going to be too small, so we're going to call this one reference side. We're going to go down to polyplane input, change this to 1, change this to 1. And then we're going to scale this up. So again, in the X, going back to your numbers from Photoshop, this one was 16.15. And remember, Y doesn't change. And then the Z goes to 80.15. So here we have the plane underneath the other one. So then we need to rotate this round. So rotate this round on an angle. So do this in the Y, so we need to rotate it this way. As you can see, green is Y, so 90 degrees that way, and then we need to rotate it in the X, so it's up, so 90 degrees that way. So now you can see it's up on its side. So again, we're going to double click on this one, move your pivot. So again, remember, turn your transform constraint to edge. Select the bottom edge, it'll set it to the middle of it. Click edit pivot, and then with your grid snap on, pull this up, and really it should be the same height as the other one. So if we go back to this one, I think I've just got the numbers the wrong way, so change this to 80.15. This one to 87.88. See, now they're the same height. That's how you want them. We go back to the side view. Again, really this should be going down this view, as you can now see. So you've got your front, which if you turn your image on, turn your grid off, you can see that image on your side. So back in perspective view, we are going to create the material. So again, Maya, Lambert, creates another Lambert in here. Change the name of that to reference image side. And then if we go to this little checker box again, to file, the folder on the right under image name, and find the side image. So here is mine. Again, you can check it up here by checking this on plane. It's coming in a bit wide, but when you set up your UVs it should be okay. So we need to move this to the side. Find your side panel, hold right click over here, over the top of your node, so just make sure this is selected, hold right, and assign material to viewport selection. And as you can see here, it's brought the image in, it's done it right, so we don't need to change the UVs. So next, what we're going to do is we're going to scale them up to the size of the box. So if we select both this image and this image, or both planes, the pivot should be in the same place. So that's good. Select this square here. And then what I'd do, I'd go to one of your other views, something like this, so you can see the box behind. And then with the yellow square, don't use the sides or this one, because you want it to do it in all angles, so it does both sides. We were just going to scale that up so it's roughly about the same height. So it's going up to about that line, about there. So now what you've got are your images, the same height as this box. So this box now can be either deleted, or you can just turn the visibility off on the layer so it's not there. And the last step is to move the images back to the edge of the grid. So with grid snap on, if you select one at a time, just drag them back so that they're at the edges, just like this. And then what you'll get is you've got your front view, and if you turn your material on again, your texture, you've got your side view, and this is going to help you create the model at 0, 0. So one last thing to do so we don't grab them is select them both and add them to a new layer. Call this reference images. Images. Save that. So these two are now on the reference image one. So if we test it with the visibility, just turn it on and off. So now what we can do is we can change this end one to R again. And basically, when we're modeling, we won't be able to grab them. They'll just be there in the background as helpful reference images to model around. So once this is done, please ensure you save this as a setup. So again, really what you're looking for is this line going sort of straight down the middle of your image, because you're going to model one side and then flip it over the other. Slightly off, but it should work fine. Again, here, this is not as bad, but again, you kind of want the line down the middle. So once that's saved, you're now ready to start modeling the character. So file, save scene as human model setup. And then you've got a backup just in case you need it. There we go. So next session in the next video we will be looking to start modeling off these images.